to tell you about risk factors in the family and school. Children spend a lot of time in their families and in school, and much of that time is promoting their positive and successful development. But there are things in families and in school experiences that can contribute to risk for health and behavior problems. The first of these is a family history of problem behavior. We know that children of criminals are more likely to become criminals themselves. Similarly, children of people who have alcohol problems are more likely to develop alcohol problems themselves. But remember, none of these risk factors condemns a young person to develop problem behaviors. About 25% of the children of alcoholics will become alcoholic themselves, but that means 75% of the children of alcoholics won't develop problems with alcohol. There's not a lot we can do about these family risk factors themselves, but we can make sure that children who've been exposed to these risk factors in their family are included in preventive programs. The second risk factor is what we call family management problems, and there are three components here. The first is failure to set clear expectations for children's behavior. The second is failure to monitor children in developmentally appropriate ways. And the third is excessively severe and inconsistent discipline. Extreme forms of family management problem are abuse and neglect of children. We know that those children who are exposed to poor family management or family management problems are at a greater risk for virtually all these health and behavior problems. If we can just help parents do a better job of setting clear expectations for their kids, monitoring them in developmentally appropriate ways, and being consistent and moderate and disciplined, that we can reduce risk for all those health and behavior problems. The third risk factor in the family area is family conflict. All families have conflict, but what I'm talking about is extremely high levels of conflict where people are shoving or hitting or shouting at each other a lot. We know that in families where there are high levels of aggressive behavior and conflict, that children are at an elevated risk of developing problem behaviors. The fourth risk factor in the family domain are favorable attitudes towards the behavior and parental involvement in that behavior. If you smoke or drink, your children are more likely to be interested in smoking and drinking. It's very important that as an adult, you don't allow your children to become involved in those behaviors. Don't let your son open a beer for you. Don't let your daughter light your cigarette, even if you smoke. It's important to communicate a norm that those behaviors are for adults, not for young people in families. Similarly, if you communicate the norm that when someone shoves you on the playground, you should hit them or shove them back, you're communicating the idea that violence is the way you respond to aggressive behavior in your family. That's not what you want to communicate to your son or daughter. School experiences can also contribute to risk. The first risk factor in the school area is academic failure beginning in the late elementary grades. Kids all learn to read at different rates, but if children haven't learned to read by the third or fourth grade, they are not going to be able to read to learn later in school. Those children who start to fall behind academically in the late grades of elementary school are at a much greater risk of later health and behavior problems in their teenage years. The second risk factor in the school area is low commitment to school. Kids who don't like school, who don't want to be there, who don't care about getting an education. Now, if teachers drill for standardized tests all the time and young people don't have a time in class to learn material and get involved in projects, they may lose their commitment to school. But there are ways for teachers to ensure academic success and ensure high commitment to school, like one-on-one tutoring or reading programs in the elementary grades that help all young people succeed academically and still keep their commitment to education. In summary, there are several risk factors in families and schools that can contribute to youth problem behaviors. Communities that care will help you identify those risk factors in families and schools that are most widespread in your community so that you can do something about them.